If you're new with us this evening, what we've gone through so far in the book of Leviticus is mostly legal material, like laws, God saying don't do this, punishments for breaking those laws, the ministry of the Levites, that's the priests and all the things they're supposed to do, sacrificial system, the feasts and the fellowships and all of that. That's all laid out here in the book of Leviticus, and we see a lot of that kind of illuminate things in the New Testament, the Gospels in particular. And that's been good. Here in chapter 26, we're going to look at maybe the best description of the Old Covenant. This is the Old Covenant. Last week, in chapter 25, we saw the Sabbath years commanded. Remember, they weren't just supposed to have a Sabbath day, work 6 days and then take off the seventh day. They were supposed to also have Sabbath years, work 6 years and take off a whole year, the seventh year. And then that 50th year would be the year of Jubilee, and they take off even an additional year. And I told you that they didn't really do that. There's no real record of the Israelites ever actually having taken a Sabbath year, letting the land lie just fallow. Whatever grows, and they're allowed to eat that, but they don't plant, they don't harvest. And so it's going to be brought up again tonight in this chapter. Now, the Old Covenant, that's what we're going to look at tonight. That is a great description of the Old Covenant. The Old Covenant is essentially, if you demonstrate faith through meticulous obedience of the law, you'll be blessed. If you're disobedient, you're faithless, and that's evident through your disobedience, then you will be cursed. So faith expressed through obedience to God's commands equals covenant blessing. Disobedience equals covenant cursing. And that's what takes place here. And one thing you'll notice is there's a relatively short section laying out the blessings. Okay, in comparison to the curses. The curses are much longer. And there seems to be something in our human nature that we are more motivated by threats of bad things happening than we are of promises of good things happening, right? So let me give you an example. We don't normally, you might have heard this, buckle up for safety, but it's not as effective as click it or ticket. Right? So oftentimes that click it or ticket, oh yeah, I better click it or I'm going to have to pay a fine and put my seatbelt on. And that's what's happening here. God makes some wonderful promises for their obedience, and then he gives a huge list of warnings for their disobedience. It starts out in the first couple of verses just reiterating a couple of commandments. And then it's going to get into this if-then. If you do this, then this will happen. That's the Old Covenant for you. For the good or for the bad. If you do this and you're obedient, then you'll be blessed. If you do this and are disobedient, then you will be cursed and bad things will happen. Now, before we even read this, I want to start out and say that is not the new covenant. Okay? We are in the new covenant. This is the Old Covenant, the system for the Israelites in the Old Testament. All right, it doesn't work this way for New Testament, New Covenant believers. All right, so that's important. And sometimes what happens is sometimes people might try to drag us back into the Old Covenant, probably put us back under Old Covenant restrictions, under the threat of penalty from God, and this is where I see this played out a lot of us as Christians still have an Old Covenant mentality. Here's what I mean. We think, hey, okay, God, if I just go to church and I'm good to my neighbors and I pay my tithe and I volunteer and I give money and I do all these things, then you're going to bless me. Right? We're banking goodwill. It's kind of how we act. And this is why we get mad at God when bad things happen in our life, right? We feel like he's broken the agreement. Like, God, hey, listen, I'm supposed to do good, and you're supposed to bless me, and I've been doing good, and you let this bad thing happen to me. You didn't bless me. But that's not the way this works. And by the way, when we act like that, what we're probably doing is overestimating our own goodness anyways. Isn't that true? We're really not as good as we think we are. That's true, number one. And number two, that's not the agreement. That's not how this works anymore. This is how it worked for the Old Covenant believers, Israel. And the rest of the Old Testament plays out how they followed these warnings and promise of blessing. So the two things there, verse 1, don't make an idol for yourself. Don't set up carved images, sacred pillars for yourself, or place sculpted stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. So, there you go. First commandment right there off the bat, don't make any idols. You might be thinking to yourself, like, man, it just keeps saying that over and over and over. Well, if you've read the rest of the Bible, you know that the history of Israel, they fell into idolatry routinely. I mean, just over and over and over and over and over. So God said it a whole bunch. They still did it all the time. And verse 2, keep my Sabbaths and revere my sanctuary. I am the Lord. And once again, we'll see even in this chapter down in verse 34, they didn't keep the Sabbaths. It doesn't happen, and they are punished for it. Now, here's the good part. Here's the part about the blessings. Starts in verse 3. It says this, if you follow my statutes and faithfully observe my commands, I'll give you rain at the right time, and the land will yield its produce, and the trees of the field will bear their fruit. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until sowing time. You'll have plenty of food to eat and live securely in your land. I'll give peace to the land, and you will lie down with nothing to frighten you. I'll remove dangerous animals from the land. No sword will pass through the land, and you will pursue your enemies, and they'll fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will pursue 100, and 100 of you will pursue 10,000. Your enemies will fall before you by the sword. I'll turn to you, make you fruitful, and multiply you, and confirm my covenant with you. You will eat the old grain of the previous year, and will clear out the old to make room for the new. I'll place my residence among you, and I'll not reject you. I'll walk among you and be your God, and you'll be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, so that you would no longer be their slaves. I broke the bars of your yoke and enabled you to live in freedom. So this is the covenant promise of blessing for obedience. If you follow my statutes, faithfully observe my commands. Now, this is not works-based righteousness. It's not just like if you do this, this, and this, you earn God's favor. That's not it. The picture here is faith in God expressed through obedience to his statutes and his commands. Here's why I tell you that. There's places in the Old Testament where they are going through the motions of the sacrifices, going through the motion of all the feasts and festivals and observing the commandments, and yet their hearts are far from God. And God says, listen, I don't want your sacrifices anymore. It stinks in my nose, the smell of your sacrifices, because it comes from a faithless heart. And of course, in the New Testament, the Pharisees are those people, right? They meticulously obeyed, but it wasn't out of a heart of faith. Jesus said they're whitewashed tombs. They look good on the outside, but inside they're dead men. They're full of dead men's bones. They're corrupted. And so don't misunderstand. It's not just like, okay, if I check off all these boxes, then God's good with me. No, it's by faith you observe his commands, trusting in him that he knows better than you, and doing what he would have you do by faith. He says if you'll do that, he promises certain things. First of all, agricultural abundance. They're an agrarian society, right? They live off the land. They grow crops. If the crops don't grow, the people don't eat. There's no other option. So the first thing is a prolonged growing season. You'll still be harvesting grapes by the time it's time to harvest the wheat, and then you'll be harvesting the grapes, and it'll be time to sow the fields again, and it'll be just you'll be harvesting so long, the harvest seasons will be so long, it'll run into the planting seasons. That's be so much food. You'll have so much abundance of food, verses 9 and 10, that you'll have to clear out the old grain so you can store the new grain. You'll have leftovers, extra abundance, plenty of food. This is a day and age where if there was a famine in the land, if there wasn't rain, a drought hits the land, people starve to death. There's nobody there to rescue them. No government assistance. No other nations coming to their aid. They live and die based off what they plant and reap. And so this is a big deal. God says, listen, you listen to me, you do what you're supposed to do, you'll have lots of food to eat. You also have safety. Safety from danger. Nothing to fear. You'll go to bed at night with nothing to fear. You'll lay your head down and you'll have no fear, no worries about what's coming. And military victory. People will fear you. They'll run away from you. And as a matter of fact, 5 of you will be able to beat 100 of your enemies. And that's a lot. That's 1 to 20, right? One soldier fights 20 soldiers. And he says, and not only that, 100 will be able to fight 10,000. And so that's 1 soldier fights 100 soldiers. That's a lot. Don't check my math there. I'm just pretty sure on it. Really more of a theology guy than a math guy, so give me a break. And so, man, that's a big deal. And we see that take place throughout the Old Testament. We see moments of that, right? Gideon is the big example. Gideon and his 300 rout a vast army of 138,000 Assyrians, okay? Big time. You see Samson kill 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone of a donkey. 1 versus 1,000. And so you see some instances of that where God did that. I mean, he kept his word throughout the Old Testament. That happened. So you have food. That's a big promise. You got to eat. Secondly, you have safety. That's a big deal. Military victory. That's a good thing. And the biggest thing, in verse 11, you have his presence. This is the biggest thing. He says, verse 11, I'll place my residence among you. And that word residence, in my translation, is actually tabernacle, right? So God will tabernacle with you. He will reside with his people. He'll pitch his tent among his people. He'll establish his residence there among Israel. And I won't reject you. I'll walk among you and be your God, and you'll be my people. What does that sound like? I'll walk among you. I mean, that's garden language, right? That's Garden of Eden type language where God and man walk together in the coolness of the day. It's fellowship. You'll have fellowship with God. That's the picture. Paul quotes this verse 11 in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16. And his point there is that the New Testament believers like us, just like the Israelites back then, we should be separate from the world. We are God's own people. We shouldn't adopt the customs of the world around us, just like they weren't supposed to adopt the customs of the Canaanites, supposed to be separated from the world, not to have any fellowship with the world, not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. That's the context that Paul says that. He says, listen, you'll be my nation. You'll be my people. I'll be your God. I'll walk among you. You'll have fellowship with me. Now listen, the Bible, I've said this many, many times, the Bible is a story of redemption. Main theme throughout the whole Bible, redemption. Chapter 3 of the Bible, it goes wrong. God and man have fellowship. Fellowship is broken. The rest of the story is leading up to God, is the process of God restoring mankind to himself. And listen to that. I'll walk among you. I'll be with you. I'll be your God. You'll be my people. We see redemption taking place. That's the promise. Verse 13, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. He says, listen, I can do it. I brought you out of slavery in Egypt for this purpose. I delivered you. I am your deliverer. And if you will just listen and follow and obey, I'll continue to be your deliverer. Nothing's going to attack you. Nothing's going to harm you. Nothing's going to hurt you. I took you out of slavery. I can keep you safe out here in the land of Canaan as well. That's the promise. I set you free for this, God says to the people. They then, if you have the proper attitude, their attitude should be, God has rescued us from slavery. He promises to bless us if we'll just follow him. We should do that just because we're so thankful that he rescued us out of slavery. But now we have 2 reasons to do it. That should be the attitude of the Israelites in the wilderness. So he promises food, provision, and provision through food, safety, and his presence. Now, the next part is the longer section starting in verse 14, and this is the curses for disobedience. And the curses are twice as long, as I mentioned, a lot more. And what you'll notice is an escalating severity, right? God will promise a curse, a punishment, and it's like, and if that doesn't do it, then I'll do this. And if you still won't listen, then this will happen. And then if that doesn't work, wait for this. And it gets absolutely horrible. And I don't want to drag us through all of it, but I want you to feel the weight of it. So let's go through this. It says this, verse 14, but if you do not obey me and observe all these commands, if you reject my statutes, if you despise my ordinances, and do not observe all my commands and break my covenant. So all of those, verse 14 and 15, is all this, a bunch of different ways of saying if you break the laws, if you don't obey, so forth. Now, I want to make a quick application there. You know, I think a lot of times in our world today, people will say, kind of minimize sin. We'll say, listen, it's just, okay, it's a little thing. It's not a big deal. Okay, I know we're not supposed to, but it's fine. You know, I just kind of do what's right for me. It's a little sin. It's not a major deal. But God says, when we violate his commands, we are rejecting his statutes. We are despising his ordinances. This is God's perspective on sin. It's a rejection of him. It's a despising of him, breaking his commandments, breaking his covenants. That's the picture there. If that's the case, verse 16 is the then I will do this to you. I will bring terror on you. Pause. I will bring terror on you. You know, a threat is only as scary as the person behind the threat. Isn't that true? You know, they're like little kids run around on Wednesdays, you know, and little boys especially, you know, we put up our dukes, I'm going to get you, you know, and they're not afraid of me because they know I'm not really going to punch them in the face in front of their parents. And they're like, oh, I punch you. And I'm like, nuh-uh. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid of them. Right? It's not much of a threat. But if the right person said that to me, I'm going to punch you, I would be afraid. Right? Like if there was enough weight behind that threat. And then, so keep that in mind. God says, I will bring terror on you. Ooh. Don't you think he's capable of it? I'll bring terror. Verse 16 says this, wasting, disease, and fever that will cause your eyes to fail and your life to ebb away. Sickness. A fever and a sickness that will cause your life to just dwindle from you. Agricultural devastation and loss. Look at, continue verse 16. You will sow your seed in vain because your enemies will eat it. I'll turn against you, so you'll be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you. And you'll flee, even though no one's pursuing you. So what he's going to say as we continue on is the ground, when you plant your seeds in the ground, it won't produce anything. But even if it does, your enemies will eat that food. Some people will come from you and will take it from you. People that hate you and only want what's bad for you will be those that rule over you. They will defeat you in military battle over and over. They will just win and you'll just lose and you'll live in fear. It says you'll run even though no one is pursuing you. You'll be so afraid of things even when there's no one behind that sword. You will be running away from it and they will rule over you. Verse 18, but if after these things you will not obey me, I will proceed to discipline you 7 times for your sin. So after these things, verse 18, after these things, if that's not bad enough, no food to eat, no safety, people are going to rule over you that hate you. If that's not bad enough, it's going to get 7 times worse. I'll break down your strong pride. I'll make your sky like iron and your land like bronze, and your strength will be used up for nothing. That is, the sky won't rain. The ground will be hard as a rock when you try to plow it. And you'll work and you'll work and you'll work, but it'll be futile effort because the ground won't produce anything for you. Your land will not yield its produce, and the trees of the land will not bear its fruit. And that's the goal of this discipline, he says, is I'll break down your strong pride. And that's really the issue, isn't it, that gets us into trouble? Pride. Why do we try to do things on our own? Pride. Why do we despise God's way and we think we're better than Him, we know better than Him? Pride. Self-achievement, self-satisfaction, self-reliance. And James will say in chapter 4, verse 10 of the book of James, humble yourself before the Lord, and He will exalt you. Humble yourself. And what he says here is, listen, you won't humble yourself, so I will humble you. I'll break your strong pride. I will humiliate you in order to humble you if you won't humble yourself. Proverbs 16:18, pride comes before destruction, an arrogant spirit before a fall. This is what it's talking about. This is the fall. Sky that won't produce rain, ground that won't produce any kind of grain. Verse 21, if you act with hostility towards me and are unwilling to obey me, I'll multiply your plagues 7 times for your sins. So he says, listen, if you still won't listen, it's going to get 7 times worse. I'll send wild animals among you. They will deprive you of your children, ravage your livestock, and reduce your numbers until your roads are deserted. The next thing he says is, listen, if starving because of famine doesn't do it, if running constantly from your enemy, if being subjected to rule from people that hate you, if that doesn't do it, listen, I'll send wild animals among you that will carry you and your children off and kill you. And God does that, by the way. There's an instance where he does that a couple of times. As a matter of fact, one of those was in Numbers 21. He does this with poisonous snakes, since poisonous snakes among the people that bite the people and kill them. In 2 Kings chapter 17, also for disobedience, it says this, the Lord sent lions among them. Lions. So those are 2 terribly frightening wild beasts, poisonous snakes and deadly lions to punish the Israelites. 7 times. It'll make it worse and worse and worse, and it'll deplete your numbers. So many people will die from all these things that the roads, which were once bustling with traffic and commerce, will be deserted like nobody lives there. Verse 23, and if in spite of these things, once again, and if that doesn't do it, and if that's not bad enough, and if you still won't listen, and if you still choose to be disobedient, and you do not accept my discipline, but act with hostility towards me, then I will act with hostility towards you, and I will strike you with 7 times your sin. It'll get 7 times worse, he says.